So for any of you that were any of you here last week, last Tuesday? Oh, perfect. Okay, we had a real small turnout, and we didn't have a meeting on Tuesday in Harrisonburg last week. So this week's would be deja vu for folks that were here. Mostly, we've got a few new things in there. But this is actually our first meeting back. Well, last week was since the holidays. So we just wanted to once again say thank you to Sammy and John and Rebecca and everybody who put together our Christmas dinner. Our Habitat project, for any of us that have ever worked with new construction, not surprisingly, the dates keep getting pushed back. So we were originally told about mid-January would be our first work day. Now it's somewhere the week of the 27th to the 30th. When they pin it down a little bit more and let us know exactly what day or days they need us, I'll let you know. I wouldn't be surprised if it got bumped a little bit more. But when we do that, we'll all be in our Climate shirts, and we'll have photographers out there and try to get some stock photography for some PR value as well. So a lot of you have jumped on GRI and broker class bandwagon, which is awesome. Michael Guthrie sent me this, which I will email around to everybody. The folks at Charlottesville are going all out this year, and they have scheduled all 8 GRI courses that you are required to take in person in Charlottesville during calendar year 2020. So if you want to blast them all out in a year, you can do it without any hotel or anything like that. Awesome. So I forgot to send this yesterday. I'll send it around later today. And you can pick up whatever you need. So there's the 8 in person, and then 2 that you have to do online. 10 total. So I discovered a week or two ago that an agent of ours had been doing some leasing that I didn't realize. It was in .loop, but somehow it got past me. So I just wanted to remind you all that we don't do that. Leasing is a licensed activity that is very, very different from what we do. Our accounting systems aren't set up for it. Our escrow accounts aren't set up for it. I don't keep up with the Virginia Tenant Landlord Act and all the changes to that, so we don't want to be responsible for any problems that would come out of leasing. So if you have leasing stuff, if it's commercial, Cottonwood will handle it. If it's residential, Priority Property Management will handle it. But please don't tell folks that you can lease their properties for them. If it's your own, that's fine. But for other folks, we can't do it. And then this little thing you may have seen come across Facebook or various newspaper articles. It seems kind of obvious once you see it, but I hadn't thought about it till I read it. And it is just a reminder not to abbreviate your dates like this during this year of 2020, because somebody could stick a 19 or a 17 or a 14 on the end of that and completely mess up your documents. So checks, any kind of contracts, anything like that, put the full 2020 for this year. Yeah. So we are, some of you, if you went to Paul's business planning workshops, we did those 3 weeks in a row, a month or so ago. He uses Outlook as his CRM, as his piece of software that manages all of his clients, reminds him to contact people, reminds him to do his various marketing things that he's planned through the year. And he was willing to do some classes to show us how to do that. At the same time, we've been looking at a very robust customer contact, customer management system called MoxieWorks. We looked at it once before, decided it was a little bit too expensive. Now we're looking at it again and have decided we're going forward into 2020, we're going to have one or the other. Either we're going to purchase this MoxieWorks system, the Synergy Committee is looking at a demo this Thursday, or we're going to work with Paul to set up some Outlook templates and trainings and things that would help everybody use that as their customer contact and management system. So either way, it would behoove you to be cleaning up your contacts in Outlook now. Because even if we go with the Moxie system, your contacts will start in Outlook. So you meet somebody at the grocery store, or you get a call, boom, you put them into Outlook, and then that automatically feeds into the contact management system. So one way or the other, we're still going to be using Outlook. And if you think about the thing that makes a management system like that work really well is to not only have your contacts in there and to keep up with that, but to have them classified various ways. Mm-hmm. Buyers, sellers, 2 or 3 or 4 categories of referrals. My A-list people that I know are always going to be giving up my cards and sending me folks, and maybe B-list people that I don't talk to that often. And then maybe grouped by your various other circles of your life, church or sports or community or a particular subdivision that you want to market to or anything you want to differentiate, so that when you want to reach out to those folks, hey, I've got something I want to send to buyers, something I want to send to sellers. You can literally, with the push of a button, separate those folks in your database and boom, send it. So the organizing of it on the front end is the most important part. And that's a pretty scary thing if you've been putting folks in Outlook for a while and you have hundreds or thousands of contacts. So I would say starting now, break it down into little pieces, maybe take one letter of the alphabet every day. And today, clean up all your A's. And tomorrow, clean up all your B's. And just go through your contacts and see if this is somebody I want to keep. Great. If not, delete them. Do I have the same person in there 4 different times with old phone numbers and old emails and those kind of things? And then set up some categories. And Paul or Spencer can help you to do that if you've never done that in Outlook. And say, okay, here's my person, John Abrams. He's a buyer. And he's, as a referral source, he's a number 1 because I see him a lot. He's hands out my cards, that kind of thing. And if you break all of your contacts down into little bites, a month from now, you'll have a nice clean list, and you'll be ready to do whichever way we go with this. So, any questions about that? If you're not comfortable making those changes or things in Outlook, just let one of us know, and we'll help you through it. What's the name of the little app that combines duplicates? Do you remember?
There are multiple.
Okay. Maybe we'll send a list around with a couple suggestions, because there are some that you can just get an app and it'll crawl into your phone and your Outlook and combine all those duplicates and partials and that kind of thing that you have. So I think any preparation you can do for that now will get you way ahead of the game when things get busy in the spring. So every January 1st and July 1st, we have a standard forms update with Virginia Realtors. The last few years have been some pretty weighty stuff. This year, not so much. There's only one thing that's going to really have an impact, I think. So I'll review them with you quickly, but nothing that we're going to have to do a lot of training or retraining on. So this is the Virginia Realtors website. It's fantastic. Standard forms is a big button. I'll just go to the home page here. Right on the front, here are their most clicked things. So they've made big buttons for them, so standard forms. And then whenever there are updates, they put a little update at the top of the page with a link that has a couple things. A quick summary of what's changed. So here's our residential contract to purchase. Quick description of what's changed, and then a link to the actual red line version, which is the version that shows you what's been scratched out and what's been added. So the change to our contract this year, there's only one that's significant, and that has to do with a purchaser getting their deposit back if they don't get their financing. Give this a second to open up. There we go. So what our contract used to say is, here's our commitment date. If the purchaser doesn't get loan commitment by this certain date, so notifies the seller by 5 p.m. on bing to bing, this contract shall terminate. Upon giving such notice, and the deposit shall be refunded to the purchaser. So before we get into the red line, be aware, this is a common misconception. This says, if purchaser does not obtain commitment and so notifies the seller. It doesn't say, I have to give you a letter from my lender saying I was turned down. It just says, agent says, we didn't get it. And because I'm a realtor, you trust me, and that's the end of this. We didn't get it. we're out and we get our deposit back. Okay. The problem comes in just having this. We give such notice and we get our deposit back. What if I went out and bought a Mercedes yesterday and that's why I didn't get my financing? What if I bought $10,000 worth of furniture on credit? Or what if I quit my job? What if I did any of those things in Section 5 that says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if you do this, you're in default? This says I still get my deposit back. It kind of conflicts with the next paragraph. So we scratched that line out and just added to the end here, if purchaser does not default under the terms of this paragraph, deposit shall be refunded. Okay, so that clears that up just a little bit. I think the only other change was we added a spot for agent's cell phone number down here. Yeah. In the for information only section, that is clearly for information only. It is clearly below the signatures, which in legal world means it doesn't count. But I know some lenders and title agents insist that this be signed and completely filled in. It's really helpful to fill in things like cell phone numbers, but don't be fooled into thinking that's actually part of the contract. Notice of termination changed a bit because the law regarding when we can disperse escrows changed last year. Remember, it used to be we absolutely positively either had to have two signatures or signatures of all parties, or a judge had to make a decision. So last year, the law changed to say that if you don't have both signatures, but it's really clear under the terms of the contract, and one of the parties isn't strenuously objecting, the escrow agent can make the call to distribute the funds, which we've done a couple times just because people disappear. They just go silent, they're frustrated, the deal didn't go through, and they're just not going to be bothered to come in and sign a form or do something. So if it's really clear, home inspection, one was home inspection, one was financing. Super clear, buyer had the right to do it and get their money back. So this was just change of the termination form. The written authorization must be executed by both parties was changed to may be executed by both parties. Okay, so don't get stuck on that if you have somebody who's not behaving well. It's usually because somebody's just disappeared. They've moved away, whatever, and they're frustrated the deal didn't go through. They believe the buyer harmed them, and so they're not going to sign. Or if they are just behaving badly, they're frustrated about the deal. They say, I know they're supposed to get the money, but I'm not going to sign. I'm going to make it difficult for them. In those kind of cases, if it's very clear under the terms of the contract, we can still give them their money back, which is really nice. I'm not going to do it if it's an iffy situation, but those that are really clear, it's nice to be able to put that to bed and not have to send it to court. Possession by seller was kind of an interesting thing. There apparently had been some confusion about who gets keys when on this deal. This is possession by seller, so this is we've sold the house and the seller needs to stay there for a certain time longer. And apparently there were some cases where the seller was taking that as, I'm going to keep all the access to the house to myself and I'm not going to deliver keys and things to the purchaser at closing, even though they just paid me for my house. So a line was added to make it clear that the seller will deliver to the purchaser keys, codes, garage door openers, whatever is needed to have access to all parts of the house. Okay. Which, I think that's the last one of these. Oh, lead-based paint. A link was added, so if you send this form to somebody electronically, you're also delivering the pamphlet because this link will take them right to the EPA page with that pamphlet on it. In .loop, we upload PDFs. Katie, talk to you about that?
Not that this is particularly.
So Katie is going to work with Spencer to make this link live in the PDF that we have uploaded right now. It's not, but I know there's a way to do that with PDFs.
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay. So that's the last of the changes, but that last one about the keys brings up a situation that Bruce just had that I wanted to mention because we run into this occasionally And that is, he had a closing that was scheduled to happen on Friday, but it was in the afternoon, and it's a holiday weekend. So recording wasn't going to take place until Tuesday. So the seller said, well, I'm not going to let these folks live in my house for 3 days and without me having the money. So we're going to close on Friday, but you can't move in until Tuesday. Well, the contract says possession shall be given at closing, which means at closing. Settlement, the way it reads, settlement will occur on this date at whatever place we fill in, and then it says possession will be given at settlement. So we've defined settlement, when it's going to happen and where it's going to happen, and then we say possession's given there. So to me, it's pretty clear that buyer gets the keys at settlement, no matter when recording happens. But I can completely understand why sellers don't like that. So like most other stuff in our world, we can avoid the conflict by making sure their expectations are right. If you've got a Friday closing, make sure everybody knows what the deal is. And if they don't like it, reschedule that closing, which is what Bruce and his folks did, because buyer didn't want to budge, seller didn't want to budge. So, okay, well, let's close next Tuesday then. And it's good that it worked out. In some cases, the buyers are already packed up. Their stuff's in a moving van before we realize we have a problem. And so now you got a real issue.
Would we have had any leverage if we'd said, we want the keys on Friday. We don't care whether, when you get your money. We want our keys. That's what the contract said. What leverage could we use against the sellers?
Really, your remedy is, or we're not closing.
Right.
So either we close Friday and get the keys, or the deal's off. You're in default.
Okay.
And you get an attorney to maybe put that in the letter. Yeah, it's tough, because the contract says what it says, but it's not like we're going to go out back and duke it out and last man standing wins. The seller can still say, I don't care what the contract says, I'm not giving you my keys.
Yeah.
So the buyer's only choice then is to say, okay, I'm not giving you my money.
I mean, I said to my buyer, I said, you'll own the house on Friday, but you can't go in till Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, that's not right.
Right.
I agree.
Right. And so let's talk about that a little bit. And I'll get to start out with I'm not a lawyer disclaimer, but I think this is the way it works. If in a case like this, if the funds are there and they're in the title agent's escrow account and the deed is signed and it's in the title agent's safe, that deal is done. That deal is done. There's nothing that can be, never say nothing. But the funds have transferred. They're not in the buyer's hands anymore. They're in a neutral party's hands that are going to go to the seller. The deed has been signed, and the original deed can be produced. So the buyer owns that house, and that's why the contract says possession is given at settlement. But this real world thing happens, every Friday. And on holiday weekends, it's bad. If you're on Wednesday afternoon before Thanksgiving, now you've got from Wednesday to Monday. So it's just something to think about as you're scheduling your closings. And if you do have a Friday closing, make sure everybody knows what the deal is. And if the seller has problems about the safety of their money, talk to the title agent about it. Let's not try to give them legal advice. Talk to the title agent about it. And tell the buyer to make sure their insurance is in place. The horror story that the VAR attorneys used to tell was a real world story. They had one of these situations, closed Friday at 4, planning on recording Monday. The buyers move in. They're moving things into the house. As they put something in the kitchen, somebody inadvertently turns the stove on, one of the burners on the stove on. It ignites a box that's sitting on the stove, and there's a fire in the house. Who's responsible? And that was a big, big legal issue. And the way that case ended up was the buyer's insurance paid for it. It was the buyer's house. Money had been transferred, deed had been signed, buyer's insurance was in place, and their insurance honored it.
And that's what I told my buyer. I said, you'll own the house on Friday.
Right.
It'll be yours.
Right.
So how do you explain, but you can't go in?
Right, exactly. And the same thing from the seller's side. You're expected to leave on Friday, but you'll get your money Tuesday around lunchtime.
Right.
And until then, it's not so much, I needed my money Friday. It's just the uncertainty of, gosh, what could happen? What could happen?
The lender screwed up, and we should have closed before Friday, and the title agent, the settlement agent didn't do a very good job either.
Yeah.
So
So
it
it's
was-
something
it was
to,
a bunch of things,
Right.
and I think the seller just got pissed off and said.
sure, and that's usually what happens. Yep. Yeah, so it's just something to talk about ahead of time if you're looking at a Friday closing. Folks like Friday closings because then they've got the weekend to move in, but just make sure everybody understands the way the disbursement of the money works. This is an interesting topic that I just wanted to throw out for discussion to see what you guys think. This is, anybody know this fellow, Ryan Cernock? I think he has a show on USA Network. He's a celebrity real estate agent now, developer, very expensive properties in New York, apparently. And he has just started this development. He made a big splash up there on January 1st because he ran a bunch of ads saying that I'm going to give a $50,000 buyer's agent bonus to whatever buyer's agent brings me the first contract of 2020 in my new subdivision. $50,000 bonus. Yeah. So the question is, what do we think about that? Buyer's bonuses in general. Around here it wouldn't be $50,000, it might be $2,500.
Well, there was just one on the MLS $2,000 bonus.
Really?
If you brought it, I saw that.
Now, see, in this market,
Wondering if
I don't know
that's-
why a seller would need to do that. Buyers are fighting over every house that's reasonably
if
priced.
approved by your broker.
Right. So, but in a buyer's market where sellers are struggling to get noticed, you often see these things. What does that make you think of when you see something like that? Good thing, bad thing?
I think it's a good thing for the buyer's agent.
Well, yeah, if they get to keep it.
Just to be blunt.
If we sell a property that has a bonus, is the split the same, or is that bonus the agent's?
It's all yours.
And are we allowed to do that?
You are allowed to do that, but you have to disclose to your clients
Yeah,
that you're
that's what I
receiving
was
this
saying.
extra
That's
money.
the conflict I would have. Is
Right.
like as a client, I would want to know because I'm trying to trust your objective opinion of what's best for me. And if I know you're going to get
Exactly.
your wallet padded by that, I want to know exactly.
Exactly. If
I
I'm
think
getting
it
an
sets
extra
up a little bit of-
$50,000 for selling you this house, you have every right to doubt whether
that-
what I'm
that you're
telling
being
you
genuine.
A
is
few years
genuine.
ago, you saw this all the time.
Yep.
And what usually happened though was an upfront buyer's agent usually would end up either giving it to the buyer to help with their closing costs or whatever it is, because the buyer was never happy about that ever. They
Right.
always felt, like it's coming out of their money. It's coming out of, they're the ones with the
Right.
loan.
Along the line.
That's
Well,
exactly
Just reduce the price.
That's exactly it. Right.
Mhm.
So
Well, I
unless
would
they
think-
make a really quick deal and the buyer feels like I'm getting a good price, if there's any kind of negotiating going on, there's a really good chance they're going to turn to you and say, "Hey,
Can you give us?
can you kick in a little bit of that bonus? You're still making your regular commission.
I don't say anything about my commission. It's not their business.
Your commission, no, but if you're
The
receiving this extra bonus,
bonuses.
you must disclose it to them
Really.
Well, do we have to disclose, if that
for
was
all of
a-
these reasons that we're talking about."
Yeah. If
Yeah.
that was on the table and I was showing a house that had a bonus on it, me personally, I wouldn't say anything to my buyer. I would let them make their decision
Yeah.
first
Mhm.
and then disclose it to them before the negotiation
Mhm.
period started.
Well, a lot of times they're gonna know anyway because the seller's agent always puts it in the remarks. If they don't put it in the agent remarks and they put it in the main remarks, they already know about it.
Yep.
So,
They might.
you
I
know,
would think usually they
again,
put it in the agent
Yeah,
remarks.
it's always in the agent.
But you
remarks.
do
I
need to
always
let them
see.
know.
Yeah.
You have to let them know. And
Because
if,
of the
again, it always
possible
goes back to them that they
conflict.
feel like it's their money
That makes so much
because
sense.
it's their loan,
Right.
it's their funds.
Right. And if you're on the seller side, what would you say? If your seller says, there's 16 other houses similar to mine, similarly priced, what are we going to do to make mine stand out? Let's
They're
try
losing
to,
$50,000.
how about we offer the buyer's agent, whoever brings us a contract by the end of the month, $3,000 or a cruise or something like that. Would that get us more attention?
I wouldn't
What
want
do you
to
say
go
to
on a
that?
cruise with some of my clients.
No, not with them. Just
You can take me.
Why couldn't you say, give an incentive or that much off the price of the house?
Mhm.
You know, let them decide. what they want to.
Seller
Right.
is offering extra something in closing costs.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
or home warranty.
Right.
Yeah.
Love the home.
Yeah, that
warranty.
gives the
Yeah.
incentive to the client, not the agent, which
Right.
I like better.
Right, and I agree. It's great for an agent if you can get them, and if this does happen, our policy is that's 100% yours. We don't take any split. But
You don't.
it not on the bonus. If you get a bonus, or if you somebody after the fact
Sherry is
sends
now
you.
showing only bonus
Yeah. Sometimes folks will send you a thank you card with a little extra money, or a deal that doesn't happen. They'll send you a thank you card with a check, something like that. That's always all yours. We don't take a split.
Oh, okay. I better
But
start being nicer.
if there could be, depending on how well the buyer and the agent know each other and what level of trust is there could be some doubt that creeps into the buyer's mind when they know their agent's getting extra money for showing them this house. Are they really showing me all the possibilities, or are they steering me to this one?
Well, I like what Kathy said, now that I know that I have to disclose it, that, that you just let them make their decision and say, oh, great, guess what, I get extra, $1,000.
Well, you have to disclose it before they negotiate the price,
Oh,
because there's
well, right before you negotiate.
just an interesting thought. I mean, there's lots of different when in other times when sellers were really trying to get noticed, builders were building lots of houses, and the market was starting to slow down, and they had all these big houses. We saw a Porsche in a garage one time, and the Porsche went with the house as a buyer's incentive. All kinds of creative things to get houses
You can ask
sold.
for anything that's in the house when you show. it.
Right.
They can always-
But those were more buyer incentives. There were some they would give agent incentives to builders would to kind of get you to their model homes. And I think they are effective. I mean, if somebody sees I'm going to get $50,000 extra, if there's any possibility at all, I have a client that would like that house, I'm probably going to go show it. So they're effective from a seller's point of view in that way. But hopefully, if you're a good agent, you would have shown it anyway if it's a good match. So I think from the seller's point of view, they're better off lowering the price, or offering a credit, or a home warranty, or if you're a builder, you'll see them very often offer some upgrades, because they can tell somebody, all right, this next level of upgraded kitchen, that's a $10,000 upgrade. I'll throw that in for you. Really, for the builder, it's costing them $4 or $5. The value to the buyer is 10, because that would have bumped the price of the house. So it's kind of a win-win.
I mean, $50,000 would be nice as a bonus, but if I could pass that through to my client, that would give me enough business later on. to
You would
give
think.
more than $50,000.
And these are $1 million homes, so you're already making $50,000 if you sell
Yeah.
it. I get these books and marketing stuff from cities, and I always think to do the same job that we do, they get 5- and 6-figure checks.
Yeah, but they
It's
gotta
just
live with
amazing.
that big stick.
Oh yeah, it's a
They just
different
have it.
different way to live, but it's funny to me.
Well, and a
Did
lot
you-
of times they'll write that, agent bonus with acceptable offer or whatever. So a
Right.
lot of times they'll say, oh, well, we negotiated so much off, you're not entitled to that.
Right.
So that's the other thing is, you don't always get them, even though they're in there.
Exactly.
depending on how
Yeah,
they-
it's all got to fall together great, and everybody's
Yeah.
got to be really happy for you to be
Yeah.
able to keep it all.
Yeah.
But like you said, it does give you an opportunity. Here's the seller's offering me $2,500.
Give my
We're
client-
$1,500 apart in this negotiation. I'm going to forego $1,500 of that bonus to make this work for you. Now I've got a raving fan,
Mhm.
and the deal worked.
$500.
Yeah. So a little bit of 2019 numbers. These are one of the things we keep track of. Are audit tasks. So when you turn in a file, submit for review, Joe is going to audit the file, and if there's anything that you need to do, she'll send you a little audit task. She and Katie in Harrisonburg keep a spreadsheet of every single deal you do and every single audit task that you might have, and so we can total it, see who might need a little help, and give a pat on the back to the folks who were doing extraordinarily well. This list is a group of people here who have a 50% or less rate. That means that 1 out of 2 of their contracts or fewer had any audit tasks at all, which is pretty good. And so your heroes, Bruce is best in class with about 2 out of 3 contracts that he turns in have no audit tasks at all.
Yay, Bruce.
Derek and Sherry, high volume folks, less than 50%. Karen, very high volume, less than 50%. And then Denise, Donna, and Kathy. Whoops. So-
So, can I say something about that?
Yeah, please.
So, for those of us that have been here, Christy wanted us to turn our loops in if the EMD had not been signed for.
Right.
So we didn't get tapped for that. So now we're getting tapped for that.
And it drives me crazy.
And yeah, so now so we've had to change here to where we're holding them
Mm-hmm.
not to get that audit task.
Right.
Yeah, because because if we didn't turn them in, she was like, this is in your loop, you need to submit it. Well, so we were submitting them without them signed off on the EMD.
Because the MD hadn't come in yet?
Right.
Okay.
So,
Well, I can talk to Katie about that. I mean, if
Yeah.
the contract says you've got extra days, then it's not a problem.
yeah,
That
so,
shouldn't be
do
signed.
you hold
so-
them, do you
Should
send
be
them
an
in?
audit.
No,
But,
yeah, you should turn them in and it should not be an audit test.
Right, so, but they do, so then that goes against you on this audit
Right.
list.
We'll fix
So
it.
just,
We'll fix that.
yeah,
Yeah.
just so that you're getting that tap on those, cause the one time I was like, well, Katie, I had
Mhm.
3 that I turned in, and all 3 of them, they were coming like on
Mhm.
Friday, and I go, 3, I'm like, dang,
Wow.
it
Yeah.
used to happen that way.
Well, we will get those retroactively taken out.
But that's just the thing is
Right.
now we are across the board the same,
Right.
so, but,
Yeah, we need to be
probably
consistent.
clarity to see,
Right.
do you want us to turn them in without that or not?
Absolutely want them turned in. And
Yeah,
it should not,
so-
if extra days are given, then it shouldn't be signed until the
Right.
check is actually in hand.
Right.
So, yeah, you're not doing anything wrong.
Okay.
Right.
But just so that we,
Yeah.
because that was something that I noticed with Joan. I'm like,
I've talked to Joe about it before.
yeah.
I said, you're driving me crazy with this.
Well, she's I will say that Joe's been trained a little different, or is more straight laced. She's gonna be a
Uh-huh.
Katie.
Right. Yep. It should be
There
very,
ain't gonna be no slacking. with
very
her. It'll
consistent.
Be just like it's
Right.
Should be like having Katie here. So,
Right.
Which is good.
which is good. Right. And I will tell you, if you want something to shoot for next year, the top 2 in the Rockingham offices were Kathy C. at 5% out of 166 transactions.
Wow.
19 out of 20 had no audit tasks, and which is her office manager, Faye Herndon,
Yeah,
who's
that's
just
what I
a
was
rock
gonna
star. And Suzanne Doughty and her assistant Ani, Suzanne had 24 transaction sides, 0, completely perfect.
So we
Which is
pay Joe
incredible.
to do our audits before we submit. Is
Right.
that how that works?
We'll pay you to pre-audit this, so I look perfect. Right. So numbers, the full market report isn't done, but here's some numbers for 2019. And I think the difference between Rockingham and Augusta was pretty stark this year, and I think next year you guys are going to have a year like we had this year. So you had 10% increase in sales this year, almost all of it in Waynesboro. So I dug into the Waynesboro numbers, 43% more sales in Waynesboro this year than last year. Okay, it was I think 143 or 145 houses more in 19 than 18. 99 of those were under 200,000. The vast majority of that increase is under 200,000, and it's really, really, really little homes, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 homes being bought and rehabbed, either flipped or turned into rentals, and then that kind of group of new construction is just under 200. 99 more homes
So you
this
feel
year
like
than
there
last.
were more of those in Waynesboro than
In the city of Waynesboro, there were 99 more sales.
Well, yeah, but I'm
We
like,
have
what?
Claybrook, they were busting them out.
Mhm.
Well, Kirby Street, all that rehab over.
Yeah, I'm not sure what neighborhoods they are, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
that's an
maybe Stanton
incredible
offering
change.
a lot of
So the inspector in state has heard. and people are not renovating and they're not building.
Right.
Because Carafa is just, he's unbearable to deal with.
Randy
And
just
so-
dealt with him, that's funny, you say
Uh-huh.
that, cause he came
Yeah.
home swearing about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that in Harrisonburg, that the guy
Yeah,
in
there's
Stanton
3 or
chases
4
builders
builders
away.
that
They just don't, they say it's
will
not
not
worth doing business there.
Rehab or build
Yeah.
in Stanton because of the inspectors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to
So
take
could,
care of
They
them.
have their own agent.
do you have a local builders association?
Yes.
I mean, could they go to whoever the inspector's boss is and say, can we talk about this? Or we could, the realtors could say, this is hurting your economic development?
Yeah, I think they, so that's Amanda Glover's husband, that was the economic developer.
Oh, yeah?
John is her husband, yeah. So I went to school with John, and he's real laid back. But I do think Carafa is now doing plans, and not so much out in the field, but I
Okay.
think he's out some, but,
Well, he just came out in the field for Randy.
okay, so yeah, I mean, he's,
Hmm.
usually they build one and done.
Interesting.
Interesting.
So, yeah. I don't know if you have noticed that in Waynesboro, that you've been
I've been selling
listing or
it.
showing more in that?
I have.
Yeah.
And it's a good little niche for first time home buyers or downsizers.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, with interest rates the way they are, that's, I mean,
Yeah.
certainly mortgage is less than rent.
Well, and the
On those
tax
places.
bracket in Waynesboro
Mhm.
helps,
Mhm.
Stanton is so high.
So that's a big change. Price-wise, prices in Stanton went up 16%. Probably, maybe because there's so much more supply in Waynesboro, or people don't want to build there. Overall, prices went up 6.5%, 7%, which is strong. Doing that every year would make home prices out of reach for most people. But that may be a sign of your tightening inventory, which, look at this. You all now have the dubious distinction, if that little box would get out of the way. How do I make that printer, this thing go away?
I'd just make it full screen.
Oh, there we go. For the first time ever, well, for the first time since we've been keeping track of it, there's a less than 2 month supply of homes in Augusta County. Harrisonburg has been there for a year, and you'll see what that did to our sales this year. You guys, at this point last year, were at 2.5, and the year before that were about 4. So it's a pretty stark decrease. So this is saying things like, in Stanton, 419 houses sold last year. There's 65 on the market right now. 455 sold in Waynesboro last year. There's 62 on the market. So at that pace of sales, this amount of homes would get gobbled up in less than 2 months.
Is that typical though, this time of year that it would be?
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm. Yeah, compared to last year, it's
Right.
it's lower, and it's once we get the charts done. I mean, if you look at them over the last 10 years, it's just a stair step down every year.
How low did it get in Harrisonburg, Rockingham this year? Did it get that low, did you say?
We did. Let me show you. It's comical when you look at it. So,
I think it has to do
zip
with
down to
lower
this.
mortgage rates right now.
So there's a 1 month supply in Harrisonburg.
Oh.
400 houses sold last year. There are 35 for sale right now. There are 7 houses for sale in Massanutten. 80 sold last year.
Wow.
Yeah. And because we've been kind of at that level all year, our sales were pretty flat. Still 19 buyers more than 2018 bought houses, but there was never a point where there were more than a few houses on the market. It hit the market and be gone, hit the market and be gone. So a lot more churning, a lot more pressure, a lot more stress, a lot more buyer's remorse on the back end, causing contracts to fall apart. And sadly, I think that's probably what you should expect next year. It's going to be even more competitive for your buyers than it was this year, with even tighter inventory. In Harrisonburg, you can see that the city of Harrisonburg has been super tight for a couple years, and you can see what happened this year. I mean, sales are down by 12% over 18 because there just isn't anything there. And rents are so high, investors who used to buy and flip are now buying and holding and renting and taking those houses off the market. Prices Not quite as strong as Augusta County, but pretty good. 5% is great. You can see in Massanutten where inventory really tightened this year. Prices went up almost 12%. Part of that is the mix of homes. If you're showing, and is anybody interested there or you're showing there? Many more homes sold over 300 in Massanutten this year than have had in the past. So some bigger homes are being built, some bigger homes are being sold, so that's kind of pulled the average price up for everybody. But inventory is still the big story of the year. It's going to be another strong seller's market. There's nothing economically on the horizon that looks like it's going to change that. So this is probably our new normal. People staying in their houses 10 years instead of 6 years. And less new construction than we've been used to in the past until things change either with the regulatory environment or something so that builders can get a better profit on their houses. A lot of them are just backing off. They're not taking the risk of spec houses because they're having a hard time competing with resales on price with all the extra costs that they have. So if you're talking to sellers about should I list it in the winter, should I wait till spring, there's just about nothing on the market now. So if they will get plenty of action if they go on the market now. There's no need to wait. Comments? Questions? Does anybody see anything different happening this year? Nope. Anybody have listings they want to talk about?
I got a new one.
What you got?
I've got one coming up in Stanton on Sheridan Drive. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, full finished basement. New, the roof's only 4 years old. Hot water tank's 2 years old. Hardwood floors, sunroom, vinyl fence backyard. Think about 164, somewhere in that area. Should be ready to go by February 1st. And I also have someone that has a lot on Floyd Avenue in Stewart's-Draft that she's getting resurveyed now. It's getting ready to sell. It's really
What's that
nice.
gonna be?
A lot.
Cost.
I'm thinking about 40, 45. I didn't know there is sewer up there. I mean, there's public water, public sewer, but it's on the other side of the road. Because all the houses on that one side are all on septic, but they're old. But I just learned that last night, that they do have public water and public sewer available.
Took down the railroad track?
Yes. Railroad
How
tracks
many
are here,
acres?
lots on the Hershey side.
How many acres?
It's a little over a half. A little over half acre. Like 5.79, 0.579.
And they would have to hook up to water and sewer, right? City wouldn't let them put in a septic.
No,
tank, I
you
guess.
don't have enough room up there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of older houses on that street, and she's eventually gonna sell hers, but she's not at that point yet. She's moving out of state, but she would like to sell the lot, which is really pretty. It's all wooded behind it, so you don't really see any Hershey or anything like that. So it's not a bad lot.
What number was the house next to it?
32
Okay.
Floyd. There's a big white house that faces 608. Then the lot is like right behind it, then there's her house.
That's not the one that's for sale. is it?
No,
Okay,
not for sale.
the house.
No, not yet. No, there's Ray Snyder's got one for sale up there.
Yeah,
Yeah, down a little
kind of
farther.
faces.
Yeah,
Right there.
right. She's eventually gonna sell hers, but she wants to sell the lot so she can pay off the house, so she can start looking in Tennessee, because she doesn't wanna move and not have where to go, so. But,
Part of Tennessee she moved to.
she told me.
I can give you some names of some people that she could use if she needs a real estate agent. You can get a referral fee for it.
Okay.
So how does the town handle the cost of bringing that water across the street? Is that going to be the homeowner's
It's
expense?
county.
It's
Okay.
$8,000.
Yeah, it's
It's the normal tap fee. They're not going to have to pay extra to bring it across the street. I would look into that because I know people that have gotten stuck. If you're the first one,
Yeah, wait,
yeah.
it's already on that side though, right?
I think it's on the other, I don't know which side of the road it's on.
Yeah, so
She
the-
thinks it's on the other side of the road, but I honestly don't know, because the houses up there are so old.
Yeah, you should double check because if it's not on her side of the road, it
And
might be
that's
some
more
extra
money.
expense.
That'd be more
Yeah.
money, yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know.
especially if they gotta bring it
Under the road.
Under the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a little road. Yeah, I didn't realize it was even up there till last night. She said, well, I was talking to the neighbor and there is sewer up here. There's public sewer. And she's got septic tank, the house across the street, the house next door, because they're so, all these houses were built
Hmm.
early
Just call the
1900s. So,
county, yeah.
Yeah.
Double check it.
Yeah.
I will. I haven't got, I just spoke with her last night.
Yeah. Make sure you guys are keeping the coming soons on the board upstairs,
Yeah.
especially with your inventory so short, it's a great way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I have one coming. It is, on 7 Montgomery Avenue, even though it faces, West Beverly Street, it's like 3 or 4 houses down from Newtown Bakery. It's a cute, 2-story house, it's built in 1938, I think it is. And it's got new roof, new HVAC in 2018, all hardwood floors throughout, even under the kitchen, linoleum, there's hardwood floors, they said. It's 3 bedroom, 1 bath, it's gonna be listed at $145, so it's a good price. It's cute. 7 Montgomery Avenue.
Trying to get a street view.
Yep.
I guess they don't have. The little
Yeah,
car
it
hasn't been
kinda
there.
curves out, so it's,
So it's this one right here on the curve.
and it's got a garage. You can drive down the alley and you, I think it's a 2-car garage. It was wide, so that you can
Mhm.
park in the alley and just walk into the back. It's got a back porch and it's got a front porch also. It's cute. I was pleasantly surprised. It was listed before, but the listing agent didn't really,
Mm-hmm.
try. I guess they said they didn't really have very many showings,
Mm.
and I think it was due to the pictures. So.
Okay.
When I got there, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really cute. So,
When's that one coming on?
Thursday. Not tomorrow, but next Thursday.
Okay. Other listings?
I have a rental that I own in Stanton that we just listed. It's on South Shore Lane, which is at the intersection of Gruber and Churchville Ave. I'm gonna get 1100. And it's 3 bedrooms, 1 bath with a full basement and a kind of semi-finished room in the basement.
What's that street number?
2515 Shore Lane.
What's the price?
Oh, it's not in yet?
No, it's a rental.
Oh, you're
Uh-huh.
watching.
Looking to rent it.
Oh.
You're looking for a renter.
Looking for a renter.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
What's the monthly?
I'm sorry?
What's the monthly?
1100.
Oh, okay,
1100.
thank you.
Okay. We have skipped over the, that should say GAR, sorry. The awards lunch is coming up on the 27th. You can get your ticket through Eventbrite. It's only $10. Anything else association-wise you want to mention?
I think that's the only thing we really got on the docket for now. Just remember that for you rookies trying to get the rookie award, you need to go to all of the GAR events because you get points for those toward, and everybody needs to go, but that's how you get your points for your awards and stuff through the association. So the first one is the 27th. And my mom will be receiving an award at that.
Nice.
For Hall of Fame.
Oh, great.
Try to come.
Yeah. We should all be there
And
for
you
that.
can pay at the door too.
Oh, you can?
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah, well, you have to
You have to
reserve
register.
Yeah.
through Eventbrite, but
Oh,
then you
okay.
can pay
Okay.
at the door.
You
Yeah,
can register.
you have to pre-register for the numbers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody have anything else?
YPN has an event coming up on February the 6th at Frontier Culture Museum, and it is for Lisa Sturdivant. She's an economist,
Mhm.
and she's going to be talking about what's coming up in 2020. So it'd be pretty interesting to go and hear her to talk.
Yeah, she's very good.
Yeah, YPN is sponsoring her being there, but yeah.
Will there be something go out about that?
Yeah, I was like, can you put that on the Facebook group or something? So
Yeah,
that-
I can,
okay.
I can,
Or get it out.
yeah, we'll get it out. I'll ask Heather to get that out.
Awesome.
I have one tech thing.
Go for it.
I don't think any of you are using Windows 7 on your primary business computers, but as of yesterday, Microsoft ended support for Windows 7 forever, which means that someone could write a virus for it today and Microsoft wouldn't do a thing about it. And most software developers are going to stop updating programs that run on it. So if you have any computers that are on Windows 7, please don't do business on them, at the very least.
Don't bring them in here. Don't connect to our network.
And where do you want our gift cards for keys to be dropped?
In my mailbox.
Okay. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.
Do you have time to do that thing on my computer?
For those of you who don't have ducks, you need to get your ducks so you can get your ducks in a row.
Summer, I had a thought.
Okay.
You might need to call your IT guy.
I think we did, yeah, I think we might. Aaron has a direct number,
This is
which
your
is really
ninja
excited
power,
about.
power, you're gonna get your ear alarm. Oh, and then take 2 or 3 small ones so that you can get your ducks in a row. Put
Love
them
it.
on your desk as a memory for this year that you're going. Have your ducks in a row as you do business.
Oh,